The dust had not yet settled when she realized she was the only one still standing. Smoke twisted through the shattered air like wounded spirits, debris rained slowly from the sky, and the world around her felt like it had been torn apart in a single breath. She couldn't hear her own heartbeat, couldn't feel the weight of her rifle, couldn't even understand why her legs refused to move. All she knew was that everyone behind her had fallen back, everyone except her. And somewhere beyond the broken horizon, the enemy was coming again. But this moment, this impossible, lonely moment, didn't begin here. It began years earlier, with laughter. Not the harmless kind, but the kind that digs into a person's bones and stays there. She had arrived at the academy with nothing but a dream stitched into her chest like an old scar. She came from a forgotten village, a place most people only remembered when they needed cheap labor or fresh gossip. Her uniform was second-hand, the stitching slightly faded, the name tag worn enough that some of the cadets joked she probably borrowed it from a cousin. When she stood in the lineup on her first day, the others didn't even try to hide their smirks. They laughed at her rank before she ever earned it. They laughed at her accent, her background, her village. They whispered that someone like her didn't belong among the future protectors of the nation. For the longest time, she tried to ignore them. Every morning, she woke before dawn, tying her worn boots with hands that trembled but never hesitated. She ran laps until her lungs felt like they were burning holes through her ribs. She studied late into the night, copying diagrams by candlelight whenever electricity failed in the tiny quarters she rented outside the academy. She gave the training everything she had, but the laughter followed her everywhere. It echoed during weapons drills, during survival practice, during team exercises. It echoed even louder when she failed. She wasn't strong enough. She wasn't fast enough. She couldn't shoot straight. She froze under pressure. She was too quiet, too humble, too unsure. But she refused to step back. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. The ones who mocked her the most began to forget why they even did it. She became almost invisible, a shadow who trained alone, ate alone, marched alone. But shadows have a way of learning things others overlook. She watched, listened, sharpened herself quietly until every flaw was confronted, every weakness understood. Her progress was slow, painfully slow, but it was real. Then everything changed the day she met the sergeant. He was old, rough, and carried the kind of silence only battle-hardened soldiers understood. He watched her from a distance during drills, studied the way she pushed herself long after the others gave up. One evening, when everyone else had left the field, she stayed behind to practice, the same movement over and over, her arms shaking, her knees bruised. The sergeant approached her quietly. He didn't speak to her the way the others did. He didn't laugh at her. He simply looked at her and saw something the rest were too careless to see. He saw heart. From that day on, he trained her privately. Not because she was the strongest, or the smartest, or the fastest. But because she was the one who refused to stop showing up. Under his guidance, she learned that discipline was more important than strength, that control mattered more than speed. She learned to keep her breathing steady under pressure, to fire with calm hands even when her soul trembled, to look at fear not as an enemy but as an old companion. Slowly, the laughter around her faded. Not because they suddenly respected her, but because she no longer heard them. Her focus grew sharper than the echo of their mockery. The day she earned her rank, no one laughed. They watched. Some blinked in surprise. Some whispered. Some even felt embarrassed. But she didn't feel triumphant. She felt something heavier, the weight of responsibility, the knowledge that earning the rank was only the beginning. And she was right. Her first deployment came faster than she expected. A tense region. A fragile peace. Rumors of an incoming attack grew louder each day. She had never been to war, had never seen real chaos, had never heard the terrifying silence that comes just before things go terribly wrong. On the night it happened, she felt it long before she heard it. The world exploded in fire and metal. The sky lit up like an angry god had opened his eyes. Sirens wailed, shouting erupted, and her unit scrambled to respond. Splinters of light streaked across the darkness as explosions shook the ground so violently she thought the earth itself was screaming. Smoke chewed through the air. Bullets cut the night. Her heart pounded like a wild drum as she moved with her team, keeping low, keeping steady, remembering every breath her sergeant taught her to take. But the attack was stronger than anyone expected. Communication lines shattered. Visibility dropped. The battlefield dissolved into confusion, fear, and instinct. Her unit reached a defensive line near an abandoned structure, a place they were ordered to hold until reinforcements arrived. She positioned herself at the front, scanning the darkness, her hands steady despite the tremors in her chest. She could hear her teammates breathing hard, whispering, panicking. Then, like a nightmare breaking open, the enemy surged forward. The first wave was brutal. They hit fast, loud, relentless. Her unit responded with everything they had, but they were overwhelmed. One by one, her teammates stumbled back, some injured, some terrified, some frozen in fear. The order to fall back echoed through the comms, sharp, urgent, desperate. Everyone retreated. Except her. She couldn't move. Not because she was frozen, but because something inside her stopped her feet from abandoning that line. She remembered every insult, every laugh, every moment they said she wasn't enough, and how she had spent years proving only to herself that she was. She remembered the sergeant's eyes the day he told her that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. So she stayed. The smoke wrapped around her like a ghost as she repositioned herself behind fallen debris. The world narrowed into a single line, a single breath, a single purpose. Her hands moved with instinctive precision. She held the line. Each shot was controlled. Each movement intentional. She fought with everything she had, not to be a hero, not to prove the others wrong, but because she knew that if she fell back too, the wounded behind her would not survive. For the first time, she wasn't the shadow behind everyone else, she was the only one standing between chaos and collapse. Minutes felt like hours. The enemy kept coming. She kept fighting, pushing past the pain, the exhaustion, the fear. Her vision blurred. Her arms ached. But she didn't step back. Not even half a step. By the time reinforcements arrived, she could barely stand. Smoke swirled around her like a fading dream. When her unit returned, their eyes widened in disbelief. The line they thought they had lost was still held. And the one holding it was the girl they once mocked. They didn't laugh at her anymore. When she collapsed from exhaustion, they caught her before she fell. Her sergeant was among them, his rough, battle-scarred hands steadying her as he whispered something she never thought she would hear, "Well done." From that day on, her story became a quiet legend, not because she was the strongest, or the highest ranked, or the most celebrated. But because when everyone else fell back, she was the one who stayed. And that changes everything. As she recovered, the world around her seemed different. The same people who once looked at her with doubt now saw her with respect. The same ones who once whispered behind her back now walked beside her. She didn't seek glory, didn't seek medals, didn't seek applause. All she wanted was to serve, to stand, to protect. And she had done exactly that. Her journey taught her something she would carry for the rest of her life, that courage rarely looks grand in the moment. Sometimes it looks like a trembling hand gripping a rifle. Sometimes it looks like a lone silhouette standing against impossible odds. Sometimes it looks like the quiet determination of a person who refuses to step back, even when the world screams at them to run. She became a symbol not of strength, but of heart. And that mattered more. As the years passed, her story inspired countless new recruits, especially those who came from places like hers, those who were overlooked, underestimated, laughed at before they even tried. Her legacy became a reminder that rank is not